Welcome to Ashes to Love podcast, hosted by Marta Miner and Ushi Patel, with guests who have walked through fire and emerged stronger than ever. Let their stories light up your way.
Morning. Hi, everyone. I'm going to keep it short because we were already having a very deep conversation and we couldn't stop ourselves. And we're thinking maybe we should hit record so everyone can hear. We're back with Christina Achkar, and we were fortunate enough to have her with Feminine Reconnection, an episode that launched this podcast. And we can't get enough of you, Christina. That day we knew it. And we also hear from everyone about how much they appreciated your perspective on feminine energy and feminine reconnection. And so for the benefit of you who are joining us just now, let me read Christina's bio because one, you're deserving of this bio, but two, I want everyone to understand where you're coming from. And then we're going to dive into the depth. So Christina is a master coach in feminine reawakening, somatic trauma healing, boundary empowerment. When I first read boundary empowerment, I was like, yes, sign me up. And everything female focused healing. Christina helps women connect deeply with their bodies, their desires, and their true feminine energy through her business, the Effortlessly Feminine. She guides women through somatic experiences, healing the repressed parts of themselves so they can start attracting a life that they love. So welcome again. And yes, to all of that, I want all of it and more, and then some. And so where we made you stop in this like amazing place that you were in was speaking about really how trauma hides in the body. And of course, everyone has experienced it. You were also sharing how majority of it starts as a child. And so in the womb, you were sharing how our assumption is it's just about a life experience that might happen to us, but that there are things happening in the womb that may present themselves now. And Marta and I were sharing like, exactly. And why do those always present right at these high moments of our life? I'm currently doing a lot of speaking or like when some abundance comes in or I'm about to launch a project, I'm like, like, why is this here? And so could you share a little bit about what you were going into when we interrupted you? Because we wanted to include our listeners about what's happening there. Like, why does it feel like trauma is interrupting our good vibes? And like, why does it feel like one step forward, 100 step back sometime in the healing journey and even just in the ascension journey? What's going down in my body, in our bodies?
Yeah, I love this question. Yeah. And what I was saying before, which I'm like, so mad, why were you recording such good conversation? So I just love you, ladies. So thank you for having me again. You have no idea how much I just enjoy these conversations with you guys. Like, I wish we could just have a 7-hour podcast.
Yeah. Yes, we can. We can.
Have you. What are you doing on Tuesday? Yeah.
Every Tuesday.
Exactly.
So what I was explaining to you guys before was that, before I lose my train of thought, was that, okay, so in a lot of, I was telling us in 100% of my clients, this is normally what happens. This is why I can speak to this so confidently, is that we start doing this work. I start making them aware with their mind before the body, because it really does start with the mind and then we work with the body. But when we start working with the feminine energy and we start getting them back to their core energy, what happens is there's an overcorrection stage, meaning all of a sudden they're like, I feel amazing. And they're going out, they're high, their frequency is so high. And they're like, yes, and it feels like they're climbing this mountain and I've never felt this good. And then something happens and boom, done. They drop back and they're like, oh my God, I'm even worse than I was before. And it's just, and then that's what a lot of healing feels like though. It feels like they're climbing the mountain, they fall, they climb the mountain, they fall. And it just feels that way for, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's months, depending on the level of trauma. The reason why I call it an overcorrection phase is because when they start to feel good, it's almost, so I call it soda. And most women, they repress their soda, but it's serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and adrenaline. So it's soda, right? And most of the time, women get their soda from external circumstances, like shitty soda, right? Like it could be wine, it could be Adderall, whatever they're doing, or it could be casual sex or whatever it is. But there's a natural soda within us, right? And we need to balance it. And it needs to be balanced. But what happens is we don't know how to balance it because we haven't been living in balance. So we're like, all of a sudden we get a little taste of our natural soda and boom, we're just up, down, up, down. And then, so what I do with my clients is I get them balanced. I teach them how to feel really good. But when that frequency interrupt happens, when that shit happens and they're like, oh my God, I teach them how to not go so down. Just stay back up. You don't need to go up here. Yes, it's amazing to feel up here every once in a while. Sure. Like when you fall in love and you have your first child and all these amazing things that happen. Sure. But the problem is it's a long fall down.
Yes.
So it's so much better to just stay at this, like, I'm just good all the time. Like, I know something happens, okay, it happens. And I can dip a little bit, but I'm going to come right back real quick. What that essentially is for a female. Now, remember, in males, this is why talk therapy works so well with males, is because they can talk it out and they might hold a little bit in the body, but not like women. Remember, from what we talked about in our first podcast was the masculine's the head, where the female is the heart and the body. So everything's held in our body much more. And so once I can get them to a balance, whatever, we clear it in their body so it's sustainable. Because this is where I see a lot of, especially, I never ever talk shit on other coaches because I actually think we're all just here to help and be loved and all of that. Like when you really look at what humans need on a very deep level, that's why I just never believe there's a bad coach. I just believe there's ones that need to maybe just educate themselves a little more. But the problem is they'll tell people, put on lipstick juice, and they won't balance them somatically because it's not just about feeling good. So let's say I have a client and she's, I feel so great. Most coaches would be like, cool, you're done. Balance. And how do we get people balanced? How do we get women balanced? We somatically release what's causing them to dip below. So if it's being held in the womb space, which is a majority of women, in the chest space, shoulders, hips, there are just certain areas that mean certain things depending on what trauma they experienced or even gestationally. And we release it. So now they come back to a level that just feels good all the time. And yes, life is life. It's going to dip you sometimes, but it's not going to feel like a roller coaster, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. This topic is like one of my favorites because as the more work you do on yourself, the more you feel like the dips and the highs and the lows, you experience them more. Because if you're just cruising through life, you're not so much interested in healing or any of it. Yes, you still experience dips. Like I remember when I was cruising for a while, it didn't feel as painful versus like right now when I'm really ascending and I'm really trying to change my life, the dips are so hard that they bring me to my knees. And I'm just trying to, and I know it's about balance. So you mentioned, okay, so try to cruise a little bit more. But my question for you is, do I need to stop myself in feeling the feelings of excitement when I'm feeling good? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, I really feel like I'm manifesting, like life is changing. It's amazing. I'm on such a high. And I don't think consciously that something is about to happen, but it just happens and it brings me down. Like right now, I'm experiencing illness of my dog. She just got diagnosed with cancer. Tomorrow has to be put down. It literally happened in a moment where I felt the best about my life. Like everything was rolling, everything is finally on track, and I get hit. So where do I have responsibility to change that going forward so it stops happening? Because at this point, I'm like, okay, so I understand that different things can happen, but I didn't do anything to cause my dog to die. It just, I don't know, life just dealt me that card. But did it deal me the card because I felt so high and so full of life, so full of like excitement? I finally have a goal. I finally know where I'm heading. And then literally I get brought down to my knees. So how do I stop this cycle? Do I not get as excited just so it doesn't bring me as much down? Or are you talking about when you are high, be high, but then when something happens, like the tragedy with my dog, stay in it for a day and then bring yourself up again? What is the solution to it?
So the first thing that comes up for me, two things, but one of them is you're treating it energy like a cause and effect. So you're treating it like if this happens and I'm too high, then the shoe is bound to drop, which you and I have talked about, right? Like it's this, so if I'm here, then eventually I have to be here. And what ends up happening when you have that mindset is it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But it's almost subconscious because I don't think about it in the moment.
Right.
I
Well, it's
didn't
not
think
subconscious,
something is about to happen. I didn't, it
right?
was like, oh, my life is good, so my dog is going to die. I don't think anything. I think life is now going to be smooth.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But you are conscious of it because when it happens, you go back to that train of thought and you're aware of it because you're talking about it. So in the moment, you're like, oh no, everything's fine. But then the second you dip, you're like, see? And so it's that part that we want to get balanced, right? It's not
Okay.
high. And by the way, you saying like you need to, should I not feel so up? No. If you
So
need to feel
high.
that, you need to feel that. And just you need to trust that eventually you're going to balance it. And once again, it's a lot of it could be just blocked energy. So sometimes just being in that high and then being in that low is actually releasing and you're not even realizing it. Now, I don't think that any woman should stay in the healing process. But it's so true is that we think that, like, so you said something that really hit me. You said, I need to stop. I need to, but my question to you is, what is it about that you need to stop? What is it? Why do you believe you need to stop? And I get it. You feel like you need to be balanced, but in order to get balance, you have to go through it, right? If everyone
How
just
many times do I need to go through it before I get balance is the question. How many more? Because I have like handful of really tough ones this year. Do I get 6, 2? Like how many before
you're
I'm
thinking out
balanced?
from you're thinking out from a logical standpoint, right? And this is the exact train of thought that is keeping you in this loop, that's keeping you in this pattern. Because once again, it's how many more? How much more can I take? What is going on? What, you know what I mean? So instead, you have to surrender, which is one of the hardest things for women to do, especially in this day and age. You have to surrender, right? Now, I don't want to tell you that having that thought is wrong. I want you guys to remember something. And for everyone listening, this will be a big, hopefully, whoa. Your first thought, you can't control your thoughts. I know everyone's like, oh, control your thoughts, you can't control your freaking thoughts. You can't. You can't control your thought, but your first thought that comes up, but you can control your second.
Yes,
You
correct.
cannot control your first, but you can control your second. So when that thought comes up, do not shame yourself or guilt yourself or go, I shouldn't be thinking this, or any kind of resistance. Resistance is like a toddler. It will come back with more vengeance. So, you know what I mean? So what you need to do is instead give it love, give yourself grace, and go, I'm rerouting this. I'm rerouting it. Okay. You thought, okay. Oh, when is the other shoe gonna drop? Nope. No. And don't give resistance. Just go, this is because this is your survival brain, right? This is your survival brain. This is your wounded masculine coming in, trying to protect you. By the way, it's trying to protect you. So I would love for you to do, and anyone listening that ever feels this way, which I know most of us do and have, either if you're a journaler, you can sit down and write down, or you can just say it in your head, but think it. Think, when was the last time you think a thought you didn't want to come into your head? When it came into your head, we don't think to say thank you. Thank you for protecting me, but I don't need you anymore. Thank you. And then watch how quick that shit dissipates. Because you gave it the attention. It's like a toddler. You gave it the attention needed. Now it will go off. It'll fuck off.
I'm cracking up because this just literally happened with my toddler yesterday, and I kept pushing against, and I'm like, this isn't working, Ushi. And then I just acknowledged what he said and what he was feeling, as wrong as I felt it was. And he was like, on to the next. This is like so what you're saying is our energy is a toddler.
Yeah, exactly. And I know this
great.
This also ties in with inner child work, though, right? So this is also inner child work. Our inner child is a fucking toddler. It's like a little crazy. And it's so funny when you look at life and you look at the way anything works in life, you can almost always relate it to our internal world.
So just to be practical, I'm going to be the person on this podcast that wants to really put whatever you're saying or any of our guests is saying into practice, because I have plenty of practice in my life, so I can give real life examples. So right now, I'm trying to change that trajectory that every time I'm high, there's going to be a low, even though consciously I swear to you, I'm not waiting for the low. It's not like some people are like, I'm so happy, I'm scared. It's not that. I'm just cruising. I'm happy. All of a sudden, boom. So now I need to figure out, what do I do in this moment? Right now, my dog is dying. It's very painful. I will clear my energy once she passes and all the stuff is done, right? And then next time it happens, a thought comes into my mind and it says, see, you should have not been that happy. You should have not been on a great trajectory because now something bad is happening. What I need to do then is say, thank you. I acknowledge that thought. I appreciate you, my inner child, trying to protect me. That's not me anymore. That's not where I'm going. And I appreciate that thought, but replace it with, what do I replace it with?
What do you want to replace it with?
We don't have any shoes dropping anymore. We're just wearing barefoot right now. Nothing can drop when I'm barefoot, right? What do I replace it with? That's what I'm struggling with, because as much as I'm such a positive person and I'll only dwell in my stuff for a day or two, but in those moments, it's very intense. And I'm like, how do I replace this? I know this is my opportunity to replace, but I'm not really sure because it's my pattern, obviously, right? It's a pattern. It's been happening. So I don't know how to disturb that, like change the pattern. From now on, I want to have thoughts of a person who doesn't have shoes dropping all the time. What do I replace it with? Maybe I don't know that.
So you use a lot of absolutes. Did you know that?
No, analyze me.
I don't know how. And so when we use a lot of absolutes, like I can't, You said that multiple times.
Mhm.
I can't. So if you really listen to the
Mhm.
language of people, they'll tell you their subconscious, and your subconscious
Mhm.
is you have a lot of blocks going, I can't, I won't, I don't know how. But the thing is, so yes, can I give you all the answers? Sure. But at the end of the day, and I'll give you some tangible tools, absolutely, because I'm all about that. But intangibly speaking, because this is feminine, right? You are purposely disconnecting from your feminine.
Mhm.
Because
I
you
don't see that I'm doing it, so it's good to hear that. I
You are,
I
and,
don't
and
know
you're
that I'm
doing
doing
that
it.
by saying, I don't know how. The thing is, you do.
Mhm.
You do. So a really great practice that I always have my clients do is, obviously we can't do it right here, but if you're alone for 5 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes, put your hand on your heart and on your lower belly, your womb
Mhm.
and your heart. These two connect very strong. They have the strongest connection. And
Mhm.
so when you do that, you close your eyes and you meditate on what would make me feel really good. And you can meditate on the woman you want to become. And I can help you through
Mhm.
that, like on the side, or whatever. It's a really beautiful meditation. You can picture yourself on a beach, somewhere light, sunny, light, beach, white room, whatever it is. That always works. When you have the darkness, it's not actually like evil, it's just other things come in. That's where logic mind can come in. But white is more clear. And so
Mhm.
you can think of that and you go, how do I want to be? What would feel really good? Because at the end of the day, you know how you know if a thought is yours or not? Doesn't make you feel good. That's how you know, because you were not born to feel bad. You're born to go through experiences, but you're not born to constantly be going to a bad thought, or not a bad
Mhm.
thought, more lower frequency thought. So that's what I would say to Marta, is start to
Mhm.
reconnect with intuition, because I don't think you trust yourself enough. Because a lot
I
of what we're
feel
saying
that I do, but you know what? I feel like it's been going on for so long. My entire life was so full of trauma that somewhere in the meantime or somewhere in the process, I determined that's normal. That's a norm, right? Like I don't know life of happiness, like true happiness. Like from my childhood, it's been a lot of trauma. So somewhere in there, you figure now I'm way better off than I was when I was 14, right? Or so I'm really thriving. But in reality, compared to a person without trauma, maybe I don't know what the baseline is. And that's the reason I'm open about it is because I think a lot of people are functioning on some level of trauma that they're not aware. And these conversations, like you pointing it out to me, like, oh, you use a lot of absolutes or you do this and that, you almost need somebody to point it out. Like, that's not what normal is. That's norm that you used to. Ushi, you want to say something?
Yeah, I love this conversation and also thank you for sharing that because sometimes not only do you need somebody to reflect back, but then in seeing how you had the absolutes, I'm like, oh boy, do I have absolutes. I started to mull them over in my head. So one of the things and you just said it too, Marta, that I want to ask you, I want to ask you so many things. It sounds so silly, and because you're a great coach, you're probably gonna be like, Ushi, what do you feel like it is? But I'm just like genuinely asking you this is I don't know what feeling good feels like.
Mm.
And probably because I shut it down at a very young age, I was also a competitive athlete. So I learned how to win by suppressing, and it worked really well. I did very great at volleyball. And so the other day, somebody's also like, why don't you have more fun? I'm like, I don't understand. I was like, I get the dictionary definition, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure my body has caught up yet. What does it mean to feel good? Because I trust what you're saying. There's an intuition in me and an inner knowing that what you just said is yes, like you feel it. I feel it. Or even when people say trust your gut, I'm like, my gut's crampy right now. So, what does it mean when teachers and guides and you say, does it feel good? Like, does it start tingling? So that is sometimes what happens. What are you referring to?
Tangibly, it could feel like freedom, love. Everything really does come down back to love. It really does. It's just
Mm.
an overwhelm of love. That's tangibly like love. It feels good. It could tingle. You could feel light. Okay, so those are all like synonyms. You get what I'm saying, right? Just a general textbook feel good. But when someone tells me that they don't know that they know how to feel good, or they don't know what that feeling feels like, you do. Otherwise, you would know you're missing it.
The contrast.
So yeah. So what I would say is, the reason why you think you don't know that is because you've been getting your worth from the wrong place.
Worth from the wrong place. Yeah,
You've
because
been
last
getting
time
your
I asked you to bottle it up so I could buy it from you.
worth.
I'm teasing. I feel very worthy most of the
Yeah.
time. What I think is interesting about this conversation is things that are eroding my worthiness I can't see, or I can see it, but maybe don't realize, oh, that's what you're doing to yourself until you have that reflection. I'm teasing about it, but yeah. So the source of worth is from
you and
Yeah.
being a woman. So when you love yourself, so that's just a
Mhm.
lack of self-love. If you don't know, if you're like, I haven't felt that feeling of that in a really long time. I want to feel light and happy. And how do I even feel that? It's so what is the one thing I could say? It's all inside of you. So like everyone's looking for the answer, but you are the answer.
Yeah.
And
I want the answer. That's what I was thinking, that what was so touching about what Marta was saying is, and what I could look at in my behaviors and my habits is like the end point or the answer is what I think you would qualify as like a male energy, right? Versus the feminine is
yeah.
can sit in the unknown and
Mhm.
the not knowing of something,
Surrendering and
the
the
surrender.
surrendering, the
Yeah.
trust. So when I tell a woman, so I literally just had this conversation with a client because she could not, now she's doing incredible, but she could not like what she's like, what do you mean? Because she's like an overachiever. She has all these degrees. She's getting her third one. Like she's on, and that's where she got her self-worth from. But it's not lasting for females.
Mhm.
It's just not, it's not as fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so I said, you need to start getting your worth from who you are. She goes, that doesn't make sense. Like she literally couldn't understand that. And then I realized this is most women. They just don't
Yeah.
understand what I mean by that. And now she gets it. I'm so proud of her. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that when it comes to who you are as a woman, it's not just about you being funny or cute or looking pretty or whatever. It's when you close your eyes at night and you're sitting with your body and who you are, and not tangibly who you are, like what you do or don't do, or your labels, or you being a mother, or you being a friend or a wife. No, none of that shit. If you got rid of all of that shit, you as an inherent woman. And when I say hear me, when I like hear the tonality, when you are a woman,
Mm.
and most women don't even think of themselves as women in the way that we should. They're like, yeah, I'm a woman, I have a
Yeah.
vagina. No, honey, you are a woman, you know.
Mm.
And when you and now every woman is going to have a different version of what that looks like for her. So when I say just be and get worth from that, it's you celebrating yourself for just doing that. I had a client the other day that was like, I just sat and did nothing and it was incredible, and she was
Mhm.
so happy. She
Mm.
was so happy. She was just being with herself. And
Mm.
then she understood, it clicked for her. I was just being with me and I was so happy.
Yeah. No, partly it makes me want to puke because I'm like, oh my God, I got to sit with myself and I get the cold sweats. But you did say that last time, and I did practice the doing the nothing. And I was telling Marta, I'm twitching. It's like I'm twitching doing nothing. But 100% it makes sense. And I will say that, yeah, I didn't know what until I practiced what you were saying, which was sitting and doing nothing. I hadn't realized how much of the sitting and doing nothing I hadn't done in my
Uh,
lifetime, really. So it was really special. Yeah.
Not only
yeah.
that, but you know what I think is tripping us here, because all of us are sitting here, somewhat powerful women, accomplished women, right? And I think what's tripping us here is that we have been accomplishing throughout our life. We have been gathering whatever badges, right? Oh, I'm a this person, I'm a whatever. And then it is part of you because you've earned it and you've worked for it and the degree you've earned and blah, blah, blah. So you get a little wrapped up in it. And I remember I was cruising really well when I was back in corporate America. I was cruising thinking that I know myself and I know that my self-worth comes from who I am, the type of person I am, the gifts that I have to give this world. And then I left my career and I collapsed. I had no identity. I got married at that time. So, first of all, I'm confused. I'm like, I have a different last name. I don't know who I am. And my work 100% defined me. But I didn't know that until I left the job. And when you're talking, Ushi, I'm just thinking about it. You have so many amazing gifts in a world of business, right? And you always say, oh, I'm invited to speak and this. And I'm just wondering, if we were taken into a room where us women just sit there, but we're not allowed to introduce ourselves by, I'm a real estate investor, I'm a branding expert, I'm a coach. All we are allowed to do is just sit there and have a conversation. Like, how would you feel about yourself as you? Not as the accolades and everything we've collected because we're proud of it. I did this. We live in this world where we share that. Like when you go to a meeting, like even a meeting that, not meeting, but the convention you and I met at, Christina, what do you say? Hey, I'm Christina. I'm just Christina. Hey, I'm Marta. No, we don't say that. You say who you are and what you do. So it's part of your identity. And I'm like, how can we separate that? How can I just be Marta and you love me because I'm Marta, because my heart? Like, I love you, Ushi, for being Ushi. Like, I know who you are on the expert level, but I connect with your heart. I have that ability to see you as you and you, Christina. But a
love
lot of people, like when I meet strangers, I feel a little bit uncomfortable because right now I'm going through a transition and I'm like, how do I introduce myself? Who am I? Why is it not enough just to be me and say, I'm me, like me or dislike me? I think that's where this whole mess is coming from is we live in masculine world where we perform and do. And then you say, no, don't get your value from that. Get it from the inner. I'm like, okay, teach me how.
Tiffany Haddish, she goes up and in her mind, she says, hi, I'm successful. Nice to meet you. In terms of identity. And I was just making myself laugh over here in the corner thinking like, Marta, you should just be like, hi, love me for who I am.
Hey, I'm Marta.
I
Love me
love
no
you.
matter what. I'm not going to
Yeah,
tell
I'll
you what
see
I
what
do for a
happens.
living.
Well,
Like
here,
I'm almost to the point. I want to start a movement. Love me for who I am. I'm not going to tell you what I do, how much money I have, where I live, what car I drive. Do you like me or not? Because we don't function like this in society. We like somebody for a reason, right?
yeah. So the reason why you don't feel that way is because you don't feel that love for yourself. You have to start with yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
women that come in the room and they just, those women that come in, you're like, oh, I want to get to know her. You don't even know her name, what she does. You're like, I'm just drawn to her. I feel like I could be her best friend. Maybe you're just like want to be friends with the girl and you don't even know why, but she hasn't given you her rap sheet yet.
Yeah.
So that is an energy. She loves herself. You can tell when a woman loves herself because there's just like a no bullshit. I am who I am. I love myself. And
Mhm.
that by law of attraction, people love her. That's
Mm-hmm.
who it all starts with us. So yes, you can go out and be like, I'm Marta. I love myself, but you need to really love yourself first. And that is the road that everyone skips. Like they're just gonna, oh, I'm just gonna do these things. It has to start with you. It has to start with you. So all of those
Mm-hmm.
things that you want that you're like, how do I do that? You've answered your own question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like I love myself. I think I've entered the path that's like I finally respect and appreciate myself. And I'm trying not to connect with what I do as value that I give as to other people or whatnot. Like me, just me. Is that enough? And I guess that's a journey because I think nobody sits there and wonders, like, how much do I love myself? Let me see. When I take away all the stuff and all my accolades, do I still love myself? I am on this journey that right now I feel like I love myself more than I have in the past. And I hope that maybe potentially shows. But when we have these conversations with Ushi, she's like, what is it to be just like happy? What does that feel like? I know we're going through so many, I don't know. A person that really loves themselves is just always happy. Is that what you're saying?
No, they don't. It's not that well, they do always love themselves. Yes, they always love themselves, but it's not in the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking that if someone always loves themselves, they're always happy. Not at all. They just give themselves undying love and unconditional love in the moments that they're not happy.
Mhm.
So in those moments that you dip, Marta, like you were telling me, it's like this, the only reason why you're going so low is because you're hating on yourself. The only reason why you're going so low is because there's something you feel that you're missing. And you were really hard on yourself. Even when you were talking, you were like, why am I feeling this way? What is happening? I can't get through
Mm-hmm.
this. Does that sound like unconditional love?
No, that sounds like a part of me is judging some part of me. Like I
Mm.
generally love who I am as a
Ah,
person, but I hate my journey in life. Not hate it because it created who I am, but I wish that it was a different path. Like that's what I hate on is
yeah.
that I don't want I don't want this anymore. Like this path is done for me. I don't want it. I don't want the dips. I don't want the difficult childhood. I don't want that. And that's where I am disconnected, I think because I don't have hate for myself. I think I'm handling myself really well in most situations and I love who I am, but I'm not okay with that one part of me. And that's, I think, what we're discovering is
That's the part
happening here.
you start
It's
loving.
that one part, like I wish it was different. Like that part, I don't like. Give me
Mhm.
a different life. Give me the one that's smooth and easy. I don't want that.
Part of unconditional loving yourself is all the parts.
All the parts, even the back fat. Gotta start loving up on my back fat. Like it is, I'm half joking, but I remember there's a couple things. Like everything great in my life happens in the shower, so
Mhm.
I spend more time there. And one was, I was like, what would happen if you got out of the shower and just good job, Ushi. You gotta like. I'm always like, it still looks the same as it did yesterday. Like, why are you still? And I do. And this is part of what you're saying. It's like the insidious habit of ridiculing, like, and there's of course that popular saying, if you talk to somebody, talk to your best friend like you talk to yourself, you would like pummel them. And it's so true. And I think to myself, so I've been starting to see what you're saying there, Christina, about like, moment to moment. Are you loving yourself? Would you ever say what you're saying to yourself to somebody you love? No. And the kids are the best way for me to see that. I was like, that is like an obnoxious kid right now, but I love that kid. Like I love that kid. And it doesn't matter how they show up. And sometimes they are really crummy how they show up. So most of the time they're amazing, which is they're easy to love. But then those times where you're really like, oh, can I do that for myself? And then the other little shower moment was just the other day amidst all of this. And I want to ask you about this word in a second, but I am going through what I'm defining as a very healing time in my world. And a lot of that is around the word that you're saying is surrender and trust, and these things that at times can feel a little lofty. So I want to get into the specifics of it. But I found myself in the shower touching my womb. It sounds, I could have said so many things. Touching my womb and my head in the shower, where all great things happen. And I had this feeling of what you're saying, and I want you to help me decode it, which maybe just decoding it is not what we should do. We should just sit with it. But I was like, oh, I don't actually want anything from you, God. I just love that you exist. And by God, I meant like universe, energy, feminine energy, all of it. I was speaking to all of it. So it was really just this notion that there is an existence of love is what I concluded. And I thought, oh yeah, I don't have to have you or not have you to just know that you're there. And I like that there's a thing called love. Like I was just having this thing, and I did feel this chills. I did feel like a complete release in my shoulder blades. I did feel a little like the hips don't lie. The hips got a little loose. So
I'm just getting a visual of you in the shower dancing. Hips don't lie.
Yeah, is what I literally, if it could be an appropriate podcast, what I should record from the shower, because it's such a magical time for me. But I attributed that awareness to something I call healing. And then I realized, is it that? And you very intentionally use the word healing a lot. So can you describe and define what that is? What's actually happening? Am I saying goodbye to the thing that's lodged in the womb? Is that understanding now my new norm? What's actually it going down in my shower?
So many things.
She doesn't know really.
Yeah.
Private. Oh, you should 100% record a podcast in the shower.
Yeah.
That would be a #1 bestseller for sure.
Right? I know. Yes. Probably mostly men. Either way, we're good. So is your question about healing? Like what was happening in that moment, right? In that moment that you felt release, you felt not contempt, you felt surrender, but also I would use the word surrender, but I think healing is more appropriate, but also just releasing and just releasing and being aware. So I was telling you guys earlier before we press record that half of all healing is just being aware of what's happening. And so you are intentionally becoming aware. So when you put your hand on your womb space, you're putting energy there, because where focus goes, energy flows. So you're putting energy there. And what's happening is you can naturally start to release. So when you talk about healing, because I talk about healing a lot, healing gets this, it's like this, people just think like healing is this, oh, and everything's amazing. By the way, we're healing a little bit every day. We're healing a little bit every single day, and we don't even realize it. And by the way, when I talk about healing not being this lifelong sentence, the big healing, right? The big healing where you have repressed things, you've held things, there's stuck energy, right? And we're releasing a lot at once. So I have these things called intensives, and we get real intense in 6 weeks, and that is healing for 6 weeks. And then we just have our everyday things, right? That's just like the little releases every day, right? I was just telling Marta a couple of days ago, I just went through this big move. And for a while, I wasn't allowing myself to release because I was just in go, which we all do. Even as a feminine embodiment coach, I still will get into those, we got to make shit happen. And it felt like a boiling pot with no hole. So there was nowhere to release. So when you have those little moments where you're crying and you're just releasing a little bit, even if it's a 5-minute cry, and then you're like back on, you're good. That's a little bit of healing that you just did right there. And you can have those little moments in the shower, or you can have big moments where you're on the floor and you're sobbing like a baby. And those are bigger release. So all healing is 2 things for me, because I'm trauma informed, but for one, it's completing the cycle, right? So something happens, you don't get the safety for the thing that you felt. And then instead of it continues to manifest in unhealthy, toxic ways, you complete the cycle and you heal something that happened to you, right? In any form. Or being a woman, there's just those little releases Healing is just the releasing of what's going on. So there are a lot of different ways. People like to say, I know what healing is. Healing can mean a million different things.
Mhm.
It's just, what are you currently going through and how are you releasing it? How are you coming to a resolution for the thing that you wanted healed? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and question for
Beautiful.
you related to crying, because I operate in very masculine energy and I have my entire life, because I was always almost raised like a boy, like I'll give you something to cry about. Don't cry. Crying is forbidden. So I've learned that and I don't cry. But I did notice that when I do cry, when things are just like so bad that I really can't contain anymore, it does feel better. So is that one of the tools that we should use? Like right now with my dog, it's easy to cry because it's really painful. And I feel like, oh, at the end of the session of crying and just, it feels better in my body. So for many years of my life, I didn't cry because I hold the tears and I'm like, I'm strong. I'm very strong. And I think that's suppressing feminine energy, correct? When you feel like I'm strong, I don't need to cry. I can make it through it. I step into my masculine and then it gets trapped. And I don't really feel like you said for those 2 weeks, you felt like you were about to explode. There was really no release. I don't really feel that. But then it may be showing up in other ways, right? If you don't release. And tell us some other tools, like crying may be one. What else releases that trapped energy?
Mhm. So I don't want you to think of crying as a tool. That's just being a woman, right? That's not a
To
tool.
me, it's a tool. I had to learn to
Yeah.
cry.
No, that's not, that wouldn't, so you just had you didn't have to learn, you just had to come back to what was natural for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't going to learn, you just had to go back to it, because crying is very natural for women, especially. That's how we release, that's how we let some of that steam out, right? Or whatever we're going through, or heal a little bit. But tangibly, there's a lot of different things we can do. So before I give anybody tangible tools are, can, not always, can act like band-aids if you haven't done the inner work. Meaning I can teach you all the tangible tools, but if you haven't completed whatever cycle kept you there in the first place, you're going to revert back. So that's why the very first thing is, and I think you too, especially since our last call, have been hyper aware of like maybe patterns that you're in or things that are going on. That is one of the first things that you can do, is just be hyper. So for anybody listening to this that wants to reconnect with their feminine, and by the way, you are feminine. It's not something you become, you already are, right? And I love, Marla, that you said you were operating from your masculine, because that's what we do. We think we're masculine, but you're just operating from it, right? Primarily.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, masculine has its place. We need our masculine to feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole nother thing, your inner masculine. But for your feminine, you have to, in order to, okay, so think of your feminine as like the foundation. Your feminine is your foundation. If you have a vagina, your feminine is your foundation, right? I think only 3 to 5% of women actually have a masculine core. It's very rare. And so your feminine is your foundation. And then you have all these experiences and all these traumas and all these things that happen. And it causes this wall between you and your foundation and your feminine. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm just going to give you all these tangible tools that are just going to sit right on top of there, like little candles on a birthday cake. And you may think that's going to burn through to your foundation, but it's not. It will just be a
Mm-hmm.
temporary band-aid to make you feel good and whatever. So I need to get through it. And the number one way you do that is, what are your patterns? What is going on? And then from your patterns, you could go, and by the way, you don't even need to know your traumas. A lot of people are like, I have to go back to that moment. It helps, but it's not necessary. You don't need to know how you got this way to heal it, which is why people are like, I need to talk to my parents to heal my inner child shit. No, you don't. You can heal anything yourself. You don't need anybody. You don't need to know where it came from, but it can help. And sometimes when you're doing somatic work, memories will come up and you're like, I know where it came from. And it can be a little cathartic, but it's not necessary. So what I would say to that is, I can give you tangible tools, and I will, right? And a lot of it's like meditation, visualization, and connecting with your intuition, which is what I was hitting on earlier with you, Marta. But most of it is just going, okay, this is the pattern that I'm in. I don't want to be it anymore. Why am I in this pattern? And actually journal it out. You'd be really surprised. So what happens when you journal is your brain goes like this,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that I talk really fast, right? But we talk faster than we think, right? So if we're writing, we have to slow it down. And in that slow down, it goes like this, and you're able to get downloads for different things. That's why I love when women journal, even if they don't like it, because they actually get more downloads. So write it down. This is what's happening. I don't want to be like this. And then you can just start to write down, like, why do I think that, or where do I think this came from? Where do I think this came from? How did that happen? What comes up when I am in that pattern? What comes up for me? And start to dig a little bit. And eventually you're going to go, oh man, this is why I do that. Because
Mm-hmm.
it makes you feel A, B, and C. And you're going to already start to release by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to already start to release what has been really deep down. Then here's a tangible tool. So one of the reasons why I love you said that your shower time is incredible is because water is
Mm.
extremely healing for the feminine. So I do these things called ritual baths, ritual showers, however you want to do it. Ritual baths are great. So if you get into a bath and you light candles, and I have literally a ritual bath playlist for my clients, and you get really emotional in a bath and you start to release in the bath, the water can actually cleanse your energy,
Mm.
especially in your womb, because your womb is mostly water.
Mm.
So what can happen is you can actually start to cleanse and heal, and that's a tangible tool. Get in the bath, try it out, think about things that you would normally resist, and just go to places that scare you. That would probably be like, if I could just sum it all up, go to places that scare you.
Mm.
That is like a really great tool, because most of the time we resist, and then your wounded masculine comes in and goes, we're good. See, we're good. We're good, but you're not fucking good. Does that
No.
make sense?
Yeah. The amount of times the women I work with use the word I'm fine,
Mhm.
including me.
Yeah.
Fine. I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
fine. It's so easy
Fine.
to,
Yeah.
I'm fine. Can you, last time I asked you to talk about vaginas, but now I want to talk about the womb. Can you share a bit from the somatic perspective? Also, probably let's define what somatic perspective, what I just said is, just for the new listeners who hadn't heard your definition before. But what's going down in my womb? I know it made babies,
Yeah.
right? I do. And I had shared with you also that I had a miscarriage.
Mhm.
And part of I believe the cycle I've completed and released around the miscarriage was very fascinating, because while I was having it, I could feel my need to people please leave my body when I was miscarrying. And so
Mhm.
it's partly why I can talk about it with like a little bit of just matter of factness. But of course, at the time, it felt like my whole womb was coming out of my freaking body. And I wonder what that meant about my relationship to creative power. And these are all speculations, because this is just me going through it. But since you made it a life practice to study it, can you tell us what's going down with my womb and feminine energy, and really, I don't know why I'm saying it like this, but like reproductive health, because I feel like I talk to so many women that reproductive health is so s- suppressed, unwell, stuck, all these things. And so I always want to talk to you about how to go find the guy of your dreams and attract them. But right now, I also wonder, for our listeners who are wondering about their creative seat. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. You asked me to define something. I can't remember what it was. I'm sorry. You said,
I have to remember something from 2 seconds ago. No, I will remember. I
Just
asked
describe
you
the womb, like
somatic.
what.
the
Yeah,
womb. Yeah,
somatic
somatic,
perspective.
somatic
Yeah,
perspective. Yes.
yeah,
So somatic is the body, right? So
yeah.
you have your mental perspective, your logic that will come in and say, this is why this is why this happened. You can understand things on a logical level, but your somatic perspective is really more your everything that is your body. So when you release something, like for example, you said something really beautiful. You said, I felt like I released my need to people please.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
When I released it,
Yeah.
literally in the midst of the miscarriage, I had this awareness, like, this is gonna hurt. It's definitely not something I want. I feel very like I have no control. There's obviously the very intense physical pain, but I don't know if it's because I was like out of body or whatever, or just because I feel taken care of and blessed and held. I had this awareness, like, it's okay. It's gonna be okay. And which was interesting, because it was almost like the process of hurt and healing were happening at the same time. And I just said that this has to happen for the new to come.
Mhm.
And I just felt every need in that moment to people please, like, literally, sorry to be so graphic, but
You don't need to be. Yeah.
literally leave my
Yeah.
body. And then of course there's the aftermath. Of course I felt the hormonal
Nice of course.
surges and the grief
Yeah.
and the like having to go tell her, but all that was,
Mhm.
like, that was very hard. But then it wasn't like, there was a part where I felt very settled into the rightness of something that felt so wrong on the outside. So that's what I meant by I felt that was release or understanding, or the need to people please leaving. I still people please, by the way, but it was just that the grip of the people pleasing left my body. I was
Yeah.
like, now I can make decisions that I want to make in my life. I
Yeah.
don't need
Right.
to. Yeah.
It freed you up a little bit. So it's funny, actually, a lot of beautiful things came to me as you were speaking. And first I want to hit on that is somatic perspective. That's what I mean by somatic. You can actually release things through the body, and you can talk about it and explain it, but you can't really make sense of it unless you go through something like that. You
Mm.
can't really, until when you release something from the body, it's inexplainable. That's what you can say. It got released. It got released. There's no, you can spin it and not a million different ways, but it got released. And it's really inexplainable. But another beautiful thing so I don't know if you guys believe in soul contracts. So I am a very big believer that we have soul contracts when we come here. There are reasons for us being here. And it's funny because this has actually been proven by people who came, died for a little while and then came back. It's so crazy. If you look at some of these people, every single one of them had the same story. It's very intricate. And it's not, I won't get too deep into that because that's off topic, but something came up to me that was really beautiful. We look at miscarriages like this, and it is a horrible thing to our humanness. It's very horrible. But on an energetic level, your baby maybe came in here to take that from you.
Mm. Yeah, I get chills. I do
Yeah.
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, to take that from
Yeah.
you. And that is, I have chills right now because that is a very real thing because we look at it from and rightly, you lost a baby. That's a horrifying traumatic event in itself on a human level, right? But energetically, it was a gift. And dare I say that? Dare I say that? Because it was horrible. But also, so funny is if you actually, it's not funny, but if you actually look at a lot of different people who've had miscarriages, their perspective and how connected they are to themselves and their womanhood is how they view the miscarriage. Some of them get into victimizing immediately. The world's against me. Everything happened. I can't believe it. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, it is so I've had a miscarriage as well. So I can speak to it. It is very traumatic. It is. But at the same time, energetically, it taught me one of my most valuable lessons.
It's so beautiful that you say that. This was the place where I felt for the first time I could say thank you for what I was perceiving as negative, hard, or trauma in my life.
Yeah.
Probably from the victimized place, I would definitely think I would either wrong myself or look at it as something that was caused by something I did wrong, which is why I was so interested when you were telling or sharing with Marta. It's not, energy isn't cause and effect, right? And so I just think that, yeah, I don't know that I was trying to not be victimized. I'll just say that I was just in it, which is also very unlike my personality. But I also think that one thing that maybe hasn't resolved yet, which is why I was asking you about the womb, is that I was thinking I was like, did I not take enough vitamins? Did I not have an understanding of the creative power within me? Now, I will say part of the other, I guess, the ever expanding healing that occurred is that, of course, when I had my baby, I got pregnant 6 months later and I had my baby. And I was like literally for 10, you talked about gestational trauma. I'm sure that Ryan is afraid that he's going to, because I was so afraid every second of my pregnancy that something was going to happen. And yet it didn't. So that was such a beautiful moment for me to find evidence that what I was cyclically thinking in my head and fearing actually, even though I was thinking it, didn't happen and didn't come to pass. That was a really a great moment for me, was to be like, oh, on the other side of this is here a life that I would have never come to know had that energy or soul taken that from me. But it was the first time, I would say, that cycle there, the miscarriage to the baby birth, where I thought, I can thank it. I can do what you're suggesting. I can see I don't know, vilified as actually the savior, the friendly that came. Yeah.
The one thing I will say is most people, it was actually really beautiful what you said. And that experience is so, literally had chills while you were talking. We think that if I think, then it will become. And yes, for everything except life and death. You cannot control life and death with your mind. That is a will that is much beyond us. What's so funny is death will happen and like, I just been so negative and this is what happened. And so I just really feel, if you guys ever feel, and I feel like you got the experience where that isn't true, but life and death is never something that's in your control. That is the will of God. That is the will of the universe. That is the will of energy. Whatever you believe in, that is a higher power that is connected to our crown that we will never fully understand until we're dead. And then which is actually why I think death is such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing because we actually get to go to a place. Like if you actually talk to people or you watch documentaries and people had near-death experiences, they're like, I didn't want to come back. And But that's a different topic. But what I was saying was that you never have to
That
worry.
keeps coming up, so you're gonna have to
Oh,
come back.
I know. Right? I love that topic as
Yeah.
well. But it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, you never have to worry about that. Yes, we have it's our own lives. We have free will for a reason, but our energy can never affect what is supposed to be alive or dead. It's not
Yeah.
possible. That's
Mm.
something so beyond our control. So for any woman listening or anyone that's listening that ever thinks that a death happened or this happened, and
Caused it.
I didn't, you hear a lot of mothers too, were like something really bad happened. I should have just been there. I should have been there. I should have been there.
Mhm.
That is and it's validated. The feeling is validated, but you also have to understand that's an extremely human feeling, extremely human. That's not energetic. That's the human pattern and brain
Mhm.
logic. That's not, if you understood it on an energetic level, you would know that you had no control over that.
Yeah, and like right now, just dealing with my dog and the week leading up to this, like I try to manifest and
Yeah.
envision and visualize and see myself with her running and doing this and that. And I still, when I got a call from the doctor, I'm like, I don't believe in it. I don't want this diagnosis. This cannot be my reality. And that thought came to my mind is that in these moments, it's way bigger than me. And there's no even going back and saying, what else could I have done? Because I've done everything on my end as a responsible dog owner to try to figure out early. And I felt like the vet messed up. And then I was angry at the vet. And I'm like, where is this anger going to go? What is that going to do for me to be angry at the vet? It was her time to die. It is her time, and there's no stopping it. And it was very evident for me that in exactly what you said, the truth that fireworks went out,
Mhm.
is I'm like, that's how I felt. It's like, that is bigger than me. And we can play around by manifesting a nice car or house or whatever, but this is completely out of our control. And Ushi and I had this conversation a couple weeks ago when we were speaking just one-on-one. We talked about death and passing. And I also believe that in death, there is a beautiful gift that those that are passing are leaving behind for us. And the gratitude that I have looking at my dog and everything she's done for me, like it warms my heart, right? There's something that she's done for me that, in the moment only when she's passing, I'm recognizing. I didn't recognize, because every day you take a dog for granted. I love my dog and all of that. But in moments when it's almost over and I look at her, I see and feel everything she's done. And that's what she's leaving behind, is that gratitude, the heart that's full. And when then I'm also talking to her, you're going to know what's on the other end. We don't know yet. And you're going to know, like tomorrow, you're going to know. And I'm like curious, and send me signs from the other side. And so there is something about that that is very different than everything else in our life. And like when people sometimes mothers say, maybe, like you said, I didn't take enough vitamins. What did I do? Maybe maybe I was running too much, maybe whatever. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, is like that one part, there shouldn't be any guilt about it. Like there's nothing else we could have done, right? It's your time and you're
Agreed.
passing.
Thank you for bringing that word guilt up. I was going to ask you about that too. The shame and guilt, where's that located? Everywhere? Or is there a,
So shame and guilt can be located in your root and
yeah.
so it could be, it both actually technically could be a little bit depending on what you're feeling shame and guilt about, right? So is it like not using your voice, and that's going to be throat, right? Is it shame and guilt for not showing up powerfully on social media? That's your solar plexus. Like it depends on what you're
Did you just pick that out of the universe? Because it's
I know
true.
why you just
Yep.
Isn't that crazy? That's even a thing, that you have shame and guilt for not showing up on social media. What world do we live in that we
Yes,
can even
and
feel
I've
shame or
actually
guilt?
been experiencing that because I've taken the past month off social media and just for the
I
move and all
know.
that. And there was some of that coming in, and don't get me wrong, I came in, I'm like, you know what? I got to get back on it, and I will. And there's a lot of, let me tell you, this past month, I have been giving myself so much love and so much grace for what's been going on because I've been really taking on the world and doing it all, but also it's been hitting me. And so this is the perfect moment where like I'm actually walking my talk. Like I'm sitting down, I'm
Mhm.
journaling, I'm going, I feel guilty. You know how powerful that is to go, I can feel guilty right now.
Mm,
And that's okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
I
think
feel
that's,
sick, and that's
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I love that. It seems like it's coming up, and so I'm not the only one in the world that does this. Thank God. Which is this thing that Marta was saying related to, and then what you did to yourself around social media. So and your thing about self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't get the difference. I get it, but like I want to know more about the difference between responsibility and what I need to show up for in my life and surrender and letting it go. and let go, let God, these terms. And I always ask Marta to give me this answer. So now let me ask you too. And it's not an answer, but it's this thing of, I'm so intrigued, cause and effect. If I do this, then this. And then if it's not happening in my life, it must mean that I didn't do this. This like logical conclusion as to why I'm not where I want to be. And which is so funny because that's also a 90% thing, because like mostly I love where I am and I'm feeling so much joy. But that little mosquito in my brain, yeah, like I should be doing more, or and I'm getting punished because I didn't do more. Like that little thing that's still there, the last 5 pounds, like that thing. What's going on? Where can I release that? Do I got to go take a shower right now? What's happening?
So what you're saying, so explain to me a little more. So you're saying that so there's this cause and effect, but you're not getting there, and that's what's going on. Explain that one more
Yeah.
time.
No, okay. So let's go first back to what you were saying about self-fulfilling prophecy, that
Yeah.
there is a way in which you are with your absolute thoughts, or the way that you're a thinker, the way you're paying attention to things, it's like it creates itself. And then you validate it going, see, I told you, right? So sometimes when these things happen that are major, or even very like, I didn't do social media for a month,
Yeah.
I find myself like doing that to myself, which I think is not very loving, right? It's like this is happening because you did this. It's almost like a little
Yeah.
blame game. And yet there's still something called the self-fulfilling prophecy. So how are you doing it with yourself in a way that's loving? How are you doing it in a way that's actually constructive versus poking at yourself? What's the language shift?
I think there's two things that come up for me here. One, breaking, like logically speaking, breaking the pattern. You're in a thought pattern. Like
Yeah.
everything right now, it's just a pattern that just seems like it's on loose. So breaking the frequency, breaking the thought pattern and redirecting, and you do that enough times, your brain will literally discard the old neural pathway. So you just have to build a new one. Okay. The other thing that I would love to actually explain to you guys, because this is where a lot of women go wrong. I'm trying to think if I have like a pen and paper. So I'm trying to think of this. Okay. So I actually would love to explain. I know we're on a podcast right now, so it'd be a little bit harder, but okay. So I want you guys to visualize you have I actually have to, give me 1 second.
Okay.
I like it. We got to get a whiteboard going.
I know. I'm like, we're missing tools here. When
Yeah.
Christina's on, we need all kinds of tool belt with tools.
It does help too, seeing things visually.
Yes, I'm very
Help it land.
visual. But when she's explaining with her hands, I can already visualize when she said collapsing from feminine to masculine. I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like a layer, and I need to collapse this masculine to the feminine. That already helps.
It totally helps. Although I have to say, the spirit of my question is also, do you ever feel sort of personal development fatigue where you're like, I'm just so overthinking, there's something wrong with me and some
Yeah.
tool I have to apply? That was part of the magic of that release that was happening in the shower, was that I was like, it can't be that life is about personal development, like
I
only,
wonder, because prior to personal development, how did people live? Because I thrive on personal development and changing myself, but it's almost like
Yeah.
addiction. It almost is addictive to continue and keep going and get better and peel the layers and heal more.
Yes. And one more tool and one more program and one more. I think, how did they live? They didn't. They were like they were just trying to survive. I think
They
that's
were
the
just
point.
happy.
Now
They were
that we're
just like,
evolving. Yeah. Now that
Yeah.
we're in an evolutionary phase that we can evolve. I think some people would also say for the purpose of higher consciousness, or to raise the vibration of the planet. But sometimes I get so tired. I'm like, I don't want to raise the vibration of the planet. I just want to survive dinner time, like with my kids.
And sometimes I take breaks. That's why sometimes I have a period when I don't hire a coach, because I'm like, I'm spent. But then I feel very intense need again, like I'm ready, give me more.
Yeah.
So show us, Christina, you brought a huge board. Okay.
Yes.
What are we
So,
learning?
This is one thing that I absolutely love.
Okay.
So the way that our brains work right now is this is you, and you have a goal.
Mhm.
So this is you, and you have a goal. And for those of you for people listening, just auditorily, a dot, and then above is your goal.
Yeah.
And we've been taught by society that there's one way to get to our goal, straight there. We just got to go for it. We got all the things, we got to align with it, all the things, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
That works for the masculine. And it does, but by the way, we have inner masculine. So yes, there are a lot of times where that also works. But this is actually how we get everything that we want. We expand. So every time you do a little bit of healing, every time you do, and by the way, healing has nothing to do with your goal, right? Let's say your goal is to, I don't know, make your first million in the year, right? That's your goal, to make your first million, and you're right here, right? Every time you heal and you expand, you're expanding your frequency. There's all kinds of new things that are going in your frequency. Then you heal a little more, things are in your frequency, right? More things are coming in, right? You heal a little bit more things are being pulled into your frequency, maybe a new car, maybe a new house, all these different things. You heal a little bit more. And now all of a sudden, you get what you want without even trying.
Beautiful.
You get what you want without
I
even
love
trying because
it.
now you've expanded your frequency. It's
Yeah.
never about the goal. That could be still something in your mind. It was never about the goal to go like this. You've expanded your frequency enough where now that $1 million comes like that because you healed all the shit. And that's obviously just for that example, and that's what we don't realize is that it's not always just a straight this. It's about expansion.
Yeah, but I
You
never
know,
got that until you drew that because I didn't understand that. I thought what I would have to do is not a straight line, but this. And so then I was like, I'm mad. I don't want to
Yeah.
be curving around. Get me there.
You see
Yeah.
why I needed to draw that? Like I need to draw that for you guys.
yes.
When I say expansion, most people don't understand what I mean, but every
No.
time you heal, and this is one thing that I love hearing clients say this because I understand what's happening energetically. I don't explain it to them because there's just no point. But here's for me, every time you heal something, all of a sudden good things start coming in your life, good things happening. They're like, what happened? You're releasing old things. By the way, sometimes healing is not always great. I shouldn't say always great. Sometimes healing is not always sunshine and rainbows because things are going to drop from your life. You all of a sudden you want to be this amazing woman. You want to step into this new version of yourself, but all of a sudden the boyfriend breaks up with you. Something bad happens. You lose your house. That forces you to move. Something happens. You're like, this
Totally.
is so bad. But what's
Yeah.
happening is you've asked for something and you're
Yes.
supposed to give it to you. So it's going to drop the shit that's holding you back.
Oh, I just like totally yes, like the truth meter is on, but or like the resonance factor is there, but
Other things will be attracted to
Yeah.
you. Right? So like other things will be attracted because you've expanded. So every time a woman heals, every time anybody really, I just work with women, but every time somebody heals and they raise, so every time you heal, by the way, all you're really doing is raising your frequency. So I know we talked about healing before, but it's just raising your frequency. So you raise your frequency and then this happens. You're in the middle, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. And because your frequency is so high now, all of a sudden everything you want is just coming effortlessly, which is why I call it
Yeah.
effortlessly feminine.
And I agree with that,
oh,
which I had a different vision of that in my head. Like, I'm glad you showed that way. A couple of things are coming up for me. Number one, my masculine brain says, okay, how many of these circles do I need to do? How many circles? Because then right away I'm like planning it. Okay, so if I expand, if I heal 4
That's where
times, I'll get
surrendering
to.
will come in. That's where surrendering will come in. Yes.
Okay, so that was number one. So I need to surrender. How many circles is none of my business. It will happen when it happens.
And Laura, I love you so much. Okay,
so
I get what you're
much.
saying, but how many fucking circles is it going to take to
Yeah.
get?
That's my analytical brain. My brain is a computer and it wants to calculate right away every scenario and how many. So now you have to prepare for this. And I want
By
to
the
drop
way,
that because I want to be feminine. Like, just
yeah, by the way,
relax.
I want to hear the rest of what you say, but I want to stop that thought. You said that's the way your brain is. No, that's how you've been wired to survive.
Hmm.
It's not the way your brain is. That because that actually causes you more anxiety. You
Yeah.
being
So, but what if I was built as a mad scientist, like that calculates and my brain thinks like that? Is it me
that's
training
great.
myself to think that
That's
way?
great for work, but when you go home and you're sitting in your comfies and you got a nice cup of tea, your analytical mind shouldn't still be on. So
It's
that's what I'm
always on from every angle. I can predict every single,
saying.
like I should be in the business of doing insurance productions, not productions, but proposals, how they always calculate risks. Like my brain can calculate every risk before my daughter even steps into the street. I'm like, she could get killed by this, she could this. And I say, don't do this and this, because I already see every case scenario. I don't want that. That's a very big hindrance on my life because I'm always predicting. So with your circle, that was a really good right away. My brain said, how many circles are we going to do? And second question that came up to me was, I understand raising vibration energetically and then meeting everything else at the same vibration. I've done that before and I like 10x my life by just calming down. But I didn't know that it's healing related. I thought it's related to my vibes. I thought it's related to the more I meditate, the more I calm myself down, the more I'm not like hectic energy, that's when it comes. So that was my question is it healing related? So I have to release from my body. I have to, or is it related to the vibration that I feel to reach that goal?
That's an amazing question. I absolutely love that. So that will go back to what I was saying about tools, right? So like meditation can be considered a tool that you do, but if you haven't done the inner work, it'll just be momentary. You'll feel really good, but then you'll go back to your old pattern of all that crap. So meditation, you will actually naturally visualize and naturally manifest and naturally meditate when you've done that inner work and you've gone to balance, right? Not on this, but when you've gone to, so one of the reasons why a lot of people meditate is because they are on this road. They are on this, right? And so they feel like meditation gives them to hear, but how long? So when people come and tell me they're like, I can't live without meditations or yoga, I will just go crazy. And that's a red flag for me. I'm like, you can't regulate yourself without yoga. You know what I mean? You should be able to do that no matter what. Now, yoga is a great tool. Like I do yoga, I do meditation all the time, but I don't need it to be balanced.
Sustain. I need it to sustain.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely answers my question, because I thought that's a great tool if I just do it every day. But then when I don't do it, life falls apart really
Popping a
quickly.
Prozac every day. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I meant about the habit of cause and effect. It's if I do this, I'm going to get this. It's like so then of course you had your bets in your head the whole time. Like, oh, cool. If I give just a little extra more, I'm going to But this is not when you were, so for our listeners, it's 2 dots, and getting from one dot to the bigger dot was one line. That's the masculine. And then you drew concentric circles around one dot till those concentric circles hit the thing that you want, which is what you were defining as effortlessly feminine and the name of your program. So I hadn't caught that. And since we've been here for an hour now, I wanted to make sure that's the name of your program. And I didn't connect the dots on that's why. Yeah. So tell us more. Yeah.
My business is called Effortlessly Feminine because I truly believe that things come effortlessly to the feminine. And life should not be hard. Life should not be all these difficult things that happen. Things truly come effortlessly to the feminine energy. And it's such a beautiful reminder of this cause and effect that you were talking about. There are things that have cause and effect, yes, but like it should never it should never be cause and effect. It just should be balance. There's something I was gonna totally forgot about it. But anyway, so that's so it's the Effortlessly Feminine. And actually I'll take a photo of this, and usually you guys can put it on the just so they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And we'll drop it in social media as well. For those of you who are listening later, you'll have to just go search for it, but it will be under Christina Achkar, and it'll be her second podcast with us on feminine reconnection. So can you come back again?
Yeah.
I don't feel done. I don't feel complete with you. But thank you so much for your time and great questions also today. I thought if I can praise Marta and I for our questions.
Well, and I also wanted to say we are vulnerable so other people can benefit. And we appreciate you, Christina, being just such a good sport and giving everything of yourself. You're not limiting it. Oh, if you want to work with me, then I'll give you the secret. Like you're open and you're sharing and you're really helping us. But also I do have to give ourselves pat on the back that we're willing to share very vulnerable things, because these conversations are not happening like on a regular basis with friends. Or even if you share with a friend, their advice is not a professional advice. And sometimes you actually hurt yourself more than you help yourself. So I feel like these conversations are so important for us to be having as women with somebody who is an expert, who can actually deliver healing and help. And I find myself so lucky knowing you, because I blow up your phone all the time and I don't get charged for the answer. But for those, and we do want to bring that to the listeners who hopefully everybody gets a chance to work with Christina. But if you're just beginning the journey, like even hearing what we're talking about, hopefully opens you up to what type of work you need to be doing, and looking for coaches like Christina and following her on social media. You give a lot on your social media as well. That it's really thought-provoking what I read. And I know you took a little break, but if anybody scrolls down to your past posts, like they're really amazing. So I know we're not done with this conversation. Like I will never be done with you personally, but I think I love having you on and having deep dive into these topics.
Thank you. Yeah, it's beautiful. Do you want to let everyone know your handles so they can come follow you when you get back in the game? And
this week we're getting back to it. I just got to figure out a way my audience aware I've been. But I'm a big believer that you don't reveal things until they're done, just so people don't mess with your energy. And now that we're done, we're good. We're officially a Texan.
Yeah,
Across
welcome.
country, and we could do a whole episode just himself because our conversation was hilarious. But thank you so much for having me on. This was, like I said, I always get excited when I know I'm going to come on here because it's just, yeah, I just feel you guys have the most amazing energy and you guys just keep it real. And I think that's what I love about this is that it's not just so crazy meticulous. There's just enough structure to have it be amazing and feel safe to talk about anything, but also that freedom to just talk about anything. And
Just a girl talk.
yeah, and the support. I can feel the support here and the energy is so real. So I love you guys so freaking much. So my handle is the Effortlessly Feminine. And yeah, and so we're getting back in the swing of things this week. We're going to be, I think the next two programs I have coming up are going to be Powerfully Her, which is going to be a longer program. It's going to be like a mini mastermind for women that are just in the healing game and want almost like conversations like this, but more meticulous. And then there is my Sexual Awakening for any woman that wants to deep dive into her sexual energy.
And is there a program for kids at some point, do you think?
That I have been, that's been brewing a little bit. So I was telling you guys earlier that I have a huge passion for kids, a huge passion for how they take on energy and how that they handle things and what we're not seeing. And so, yes, eventually there will be something for children because I just think it's so important. And I was telling you, Marta, yesterday that 90% of the shit that we deal with in adulthood is manifested from childhood, is coming from childhood. And it's so crazy because most parents are amazing parents. They just have no idea what's going on because there's such a wall between what they want their child to be like and what's really happening, which again, I won't start talking about because I go on a tangent, but
but that for sure, we have to come back and talk about that. Because you did help me drop a wall with mine. And it's like for women who are frustrated with how they're connecting with their kids, it was epic. So it is epic. Yeah.
So, and last time you did say something so powerful because we talked about how tough motherhood is. And you said that's your projection. You're putting it out there. It's tough. And I'm like, well, I don't think so. But let me try Christina's version and pretend that it is not that tough. And it has gotten easier by me putting different label on it. Like, motherhood is beautiful. Yes, it has challenging moments. But before I was running with, it's so hard. It's so hard. So you have a lot to say in that space as well. So we're going to have you back. And we never even talked about relationships. We wanted to also talk about feminine and masculine and relationships and how it all works. So you'll be back again, I hope.
Yep. And that podcast we will do from the shower.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
You will be in the shower.
There's all in the bath. We should do an episode where we're just all in the bathtub and just like propping
I
up.
would.
Yeah, with wine.
Yes, with a little bit of wine.
Yes. The ritual bath thing is like a whole, it's the thing for me too. It's
an Indian thing too, isn't it? Don't you guys have baths?
Yes. I think it's historically probably in most cultures. Yeah. Because of the factness of it. I can't even speak anymore. I feel like very mushy from this conversation. No, but I think I want to do an episode from the bath. I think it's awesome.
That would be so fun. That would be so fun.
I'm also smarter in hot water. I'm so smart in the freaking shower. I wish, like I always say this on here, I'm like, I wish I recorded what I just thought in the shower because and there is neuroscience to that too. There is the reason why that hot water. Anyways, we could talk forever. Everyone keep tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, be well. Bye.
Thank you, love. Bye, everybody. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with your friends or family members who may also benefit from it. And please don't forget to subscribe and check us out on Instagram at Ashes to Love. We appreciate you and we'll see you next time.